Hi everyone. On this video, I want to talk about the three stages of AI adoption. Contrary to traditional IT projects and software development projects, artificial intelligence projects can be more dynamic, okay? Not can be in general, they're more dynamic. And this is one of the many challenges behind AI projects. And this is what I'm going to talk about in this video. So this means that AI implementations can be sometimes unpredictable, and quite often implementing AI can be an exercise in risk management. So artificial intelligence and machine learning in this regard are more like research and development rather than traditional software development. So in traditional software development, it's easier to say we're going to go from A to B to C as compared to AI, where there's lots of uncertainty around the outcomes. As I like to say, one of the challenges in data science is the science bit, right? And science fundamentally means uncertainty, means that you can never be 100% sure about the outcome. And this is why it's very important to be aware of the three stages of adoption, to be aware of the risks of each stage, and to know how to mitigate these risks in the best possible way. So from proof to incubation to deployment, an AI application matures by finding a fit between the data, the context of deployment, and the business requirements. And now I'm going to take you through these three stages, and we're going to see two examples. We're going to see an example of a big organization, an online retailer, and then we're also going to see an example of an AI startup in healthcare, and discuss how both of these types of companies can go through the same stages. So the first stage of AI deployment is obviously the proof of concept, okay? And the goal in this case is to determine whether AI can deliver a specific benefit within a business function. If we're talking about a larger organization, if we're talking about a startup, the startup wants to understand whether they can deliver a benefit to a business or to a general sector. But the goal in both cases is pretty similar. So, and there are three challenges. Sorry, the first challenge is finding the right data and determining what the right data looks like. The second one is selecting problems with a high enough potential business value, and the third one is determining the right KPIs. Okay, and that's very important, especially for the decision makers, for the stakeholders of an organization, because determining the right KPIs will make sure that everyone is on the same page as to what the deliverables should do. Okay, and the criteria for following the next stage is to make sure that that the KPIs are fulfilled. Okay, so the goals are fulfilled according to the KPIs that we identified in the beginning of this process. Okay, so, and again, as I mentioned, we're going to go through two examples. An example, the first example is about an online retailer. So let's say that we're talking about a chain of stores selling consumer products, and a very useful service for online retailers is a recommender system. Okay, so every online retailer should have a recommender system, and a way to build a proof of concept is to use only a subset of the data sources available, simply to speed up the development with a goal to roll out an MVP very fast. And obviously, for this proof of concept, we're not going to deploy this in the real world directly, but we're going to have only a small subset of users or in-house staff, which are going to assess these recommendations, okay, and tell to the stakeholders how well the recommendations seem to be working, okay? And obviously the KPI in this case can be, human judgment, or, someone who knows this area really well, telling us whether they could actually buy these recommendations, whether the users would like these recommendations. Again, the goal of a proof of concept is to just make sure that you can actually make something work, okay? So it's really the first step. Moving on to the example of an AI startup, let's say that you are the CEO of a startup that's interested in using machine learning to diagnose cancer from X-rays, and you want to make sure that this is actually a good idea and it's doable, all right? So the first thing you can do is to use images from a single study from a certain hospital and just try to find out whether you can actually do predict cancer from X-rays. Yeah. So the second stage is the incubation stage. Okay. So we've moved from the proof of concept to the incubation stage. So in the incubation stage, then we want to see whether the system we developed can deliver benefit in a limited live environment. Okay. And obviously the challenge here is that we need something which is large enough in order to provide a significant sample, but not so large that failure is going to be catastrophic. Okay. And another challenge is that the code needs to be production ready. Even if we're testing with a small sample, the code and the systems and all the plumbing for the data needs to be in place. So the criteria, obviously, for moving to the next phase are that the deployment will be successful. That's something that's obvious. And at the same time, we want to make sure that some of the KPIs in the proof of concept are also replicated, are also successful in this environment. Okay. And let's go back to the two examples that we saw earlier, that of the online retailer and that of an AI startup. So in the online retailer's case, then the incubation period could consist of rolling out the recommender system only for some users and doing A/B testing, whereas for the AI startup, the incubation period would consist of the startup using the system as a diagnostic tool on top of an expert's opinion within the hospital whose data was originally used for the algorithm. Okay, and there would be systems in place to check whether the suggestions are useful, and if there's disagreement, then maybe the startup can then maybe a second expert can be an arbitrator and decide what's the final outcome. So at this stage, the system is used, but it is used in a limited capacity. And then in the third stage of full deployment, this is when the goal is to become data-driven and to achieve real impact in a business environment. This is when the system can be used as it is. And the big challenges here are mostly on the cultural level and the corporate level, on training staff, on making sure that everyone is on the same page around how the system is being used. But also there are some technical challenges regarding the deployment and testing for errors, something which has to be done on a regular basis. So going back to the example of an online retailer, the challenge here is that the teams in a company need to be trained on the value that the recommender system adds, and they need to be running tests constantly and know when to recalibrate the system. So this is very important, especially for very disruptive events like COVID that completely changed many consumption patterns. And this means that, and it's very important that there's a team in place that can really detect these changes early on and adapt and retrain the models. And then regarding this example of the AI startup interested in using AI for the diagnosis of tumors, the full deployment of the product would be to use it in other hospitals. Okay, so they would have to, this is a bit of a special case because they would have to go through the incubation period in each hospital in order to make sure that the system is working properly. And once they do this with 5 to 10 hospitals, then they will have the right processes in place, standardized, which go from data collection to training to testing to integration within a hospital's processes. Okay, so again, it's these 3 phases: proof of concept, incubation, and deployment. And being aware of these phases and being aware of the challenges on each phase makes it much easier to deploy and use AI within an organization. It also makes it much easier to develop data products. So I hope you found this informative. If you want to know more about data science, if you're a decision maker, whether you are a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, whether you're an entrepreneur who wants to start a new business and you want to use AI or data science in your business, the Tesseract Academy is there to help you out. So make sure to visit our website and please let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.